These two have been as vital as me. I mean, we wouldn't have been and made it to where we are right now without all of us and without God using us the way that He has. So I kind of feel a little bit like every one of you can be telling your story and what you're doing with your life. We all have a story, and that's something we always say at orientation for Nightlight Tulsa is, we all have a story, we all have stuff that we've dealt with, we've all been along this journey, and so a lot of times we can't see how He was planting seeds until you're looking back on it. And so when I look back on how we got here and how Nightlight got started, I look back all the way to about probably 2006, and I think that was the first time that I really found myself having to look to God and looking for peace and looking for comfort. And I had a miscarriage and just really did not know what to do with myself, and just was really felt alone and sad. After my miscarriage, I was diagnosed with a rare condition where scar tissue forms in your trachea and then starts narrowing. So I went through about 18 surgeries with that, and I was pregnant, and I had got pregnant again when all that was going on, and so I was really fearful that I might lose my daughter, and it was just a crazy time. I had this disease that nobody knew what it was, and nobody knew how to treat it, and I was pregnant, and just a lot of fear. And then had my baby girl, and got better from the surgery, still was having to have him a little bit, and had my next son, and then it really hit. And that was about 2011, and my airway was like, I think 90% closed off at that point. And so I found myself in a position where I was going to have to do something different. I needed to find an answer. I needed to find somebody to help me. So I looked all over the country, and I found a doctor in Boston. And I think that was a time when I really wasn't sure what the outcome was going to be, but I had to make a decision to either just cry in a corner and say goodbye to everybody I know, or find peace with it. And so that's when I really felt like God started using people, and I really got to see for the first time how He still uses us, like how He uses every one of us if we allow ourselves to be used. And so we just were covered in prayer and verse and friendship and love, and I said goodbye to my kids, and I didn't know whether I would see them again. I remember that being really hard, getting on the plane, and we sent them off to school, and I looked around the house at all their toys laying everywhere and wasn't sure, And so, by going into my surgery, I just felt at peace. And I know that is because people just covered me, and He used people. And so one of the verses, our friends wrote verses on cards and gave them to me, and I kept them all. I still look at them all the time. And one of the verses that was on the card that I remember even after my surgery, it was a 5.5-hour surgery, and still my scar, and I couldn't talk for over a month. And they had sutured my chin down, and it was crazy. But I remember just looking through those cards at night and looking through those verses and just leaning on them. And I don't think people realize how much that meant to us and what that meant to me and how that got me through. But one of the verses was 2 Corinthians 1:3, and it said, "Praise be to God, the Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, the God of comfort, who comforts us in our troubles, so that we can comfort those in any trouble with the comfort we ourselves receive from God." And I like how that message says it too. God of all healing counsels, He comes alongside us when we go through hard times, and before you know it, He brings us alongside someone else who is going through hard times, so that we can be there for that person just as God was there for us. And so, as I was healing, I say we because he went through it too. You know, as we were going through that, I kept coming back to that verse. And as I got better and better, I just felt like, not that I had lived a bad life before, but hadn't let him take control and take me where he wanted me to be. I kind of felt like it was a second chance to live boldly a life of Christ. I had no idea what my calling was. I had no idea what that meant. I knew that God still used people because I had seen it. I had felt that. I had felt the comfort and peace that he gives through people. But I just felt like I was one little person and, you know, wasn't sure what I could possibly do to make a difference because I'm just, you know, just me. And I'm sure that we've all felt that insignificant feeling before, where we can't, what difference can we make? You know? And so that's kind of where I was, and now I see that that's Satan, and that's him putting those lies into us that we're not capable of making a huge difference. So that summer came, and Jason grabbed me, and he's like, "I've just watched this documentary. You need to watch it. It's so good. It's what we're supposed to be doing." And so we watched the documentary together, and it featured a place in Portland, Oregon, where they do, it's called Bridgetown Ministries. And they gather under a bridge, and they just love people. And I was touched by it, and we bawled through the whole thing. And just, we knew that that's what we were supposed to be doing. But that was in 2012. And about that time, Anissa had actually went to on a mission trip to Portland, and she on Facebook had said, "I just went to this amazing thing under this bridge, and we did all," and I was like, "That is the thing I just saw on TV," and it still gives me chills because I know that that was God connecting paths. I mean, we've been friends for forever, but I never would have imagined we'd be here. And so with that, we started talking, and the doors just weren't opening, and it was frustrating because we knew that we were supposed to do that. We just knew it in our heart. We knew that type of service is what we were being called to, and so, but it just wasn't happening. And so we just kind of sat back, and it kind of went under the radar, and we just we knew, but that disappointment and just that not the right timing yet was there, and so we just waited. And so the next summer, Ben was ready to celebrate his 8th birthday, and he said, "I want to go downtown and I want to help the homeless and work with the homeless." And I was like, "Okay, are you sure you don't want to have a birthday party?" Because, you know, I mean, there's an element of what will people think. Parents aren't going to let me, you know, they're not going to let me bring their 8-year-olds downtown to walk around. And he said, "No, that's really what I want to do." And I had a lady that is a great mentor that said, you know, don't extinguish that fire. Listen to his idea and then go with it. And so we came down, and every single one of those parents let their kids come with us. And we walked around and loved on people and prayed for people. And I just watched through kids' eyes that they don't have those barriers. They just love people. They don't see what they have or don't have. I mean, they offered businessmen coming out of work a lunch the same as they offered somebody who, you know, was sitting with nothing. And that was really telling to me to see that. And then so we invited our community group out the next week from our church. We were like, well, that went super well and was great, and I loved it and felt important, like that's important work that we should be doing. And so we invited our community group out, and they went. And as we were walking back to our cars, somebody pulled me aside and said, "This is really cool. We should do this more often." And I'm telling you, if there was ever a light bulb moment, I was about to jump out of my skin because I was like, the doors are opening. I mean, it was just that clear. The doors are opening. This is an opportunity. And that same time, it was like that same next week, I think, Anissa had went back to Portland and was back under the bridge and was putting stuff on Facebook. And she was having the same feeling of, we should be doing this in our own community. And so she came back, and I'm like, this is happening, we are doing this, you know, the doors are open, it is the time. And so we sat down in my living room floor and just started jotting out what we wanted Nightlight to look like. And of course, we didn't even know what we were gonna call it at that point. And so that's how we kind of started, you know, getting to where we were actually gonna do something. And we formed a team, and the doors were opening, and we were ready to walk through them. So our first night of Nightlight was in September, so we're about to celebrate 2 years. And I felt like it was finally our turn to share the comfort that I had received, you know, in the past. And our mission statement for Nightlight is loving individuals, giving hope, and touching souls. And for those of you that don't know what Nightlight is, it's every Thursday we set up under a bridge over at Mayville and Brady, and we spend 2 hours just pouring into people. And it doesn't matter whether you're a volunteer or a guest. You are all our friends. We call you our bridge family, and we just love people, and that is the whole purpose. And it's like a little city under there. I mean, you can get books, or you can get this, or you can get that, but the whole purpose of it is to really just love people where they're at. And so, loving individuals, giving hope, and touching souls, and that's our mission statement. And it's funny because when I heard about Denny, Amy Emerson had told me about her, a friend of ours, and she said that she's amazing, you gotta see what she does. And then I'm like, Isaiah 58, that's our verse, that's what we go by. And so I just want to read a little bit of it. Hold on just a second. I could read the whole chapter because it's amazing. But if you do away with the yoke of oppression and the finger pointing and malicious talk, and if you spend yourselves on behalf of the hungry and satisfy the needs of the oppressed, then your light will rise up in the darkness. Your night will become like the noonday. The Lord will guide you always. He will satisfy your needs in a sun-scorched land and strengthen your frames. You will be like a well-watered garden, like a spring whose waters never fail. Your people will rebuild the ancient ruins and will raise up the age-old foundations. You will be called repairer of broken walls and restorer of street dwellings. And so, when you take the first letter of every word, loving individuals, giving hope, touching souls, it spells out lights. And that's what we're there to do, is just to be that light and let Him take us into the darkness and show love and hope and touch souls. And so that's where that's our verse, that's our Nightlight verse. And we love people. And it doesn't matter whether they are a CEO of a company or one of our neighborhood kids who doesn't have shoes on their feet. We just love whoever comes out there and try to invest in the fact that they matter, and that they are important, and that they deserve dignity and hope and all those things. And I'll tell you, sometimes it's me going out and giving that to somebody else, and there are times when I'm out there and somebody else is giving it to me. And that's what I love about it, because it's a community. And I'll share, I don't want to go,
You're fine.
okay. I'll share a little bit about our beginnings, and then I'll kind of go to where we are now. Our first night, the two things that we really knew we wanted to do out under the bridge was we knew we wanted to have a warm meal and provide that warm meal, but we also wanted to have tables to sit down at that warm meal. We didn't want people to feel like they had to sit on a curb or anything. We want to sit at the table because, I mean, what do you do with your families and your friends when you eat? You sit at a table when you visit, and that was important to us. And so we wanted to have that warm meal. And the second thing that was just vital to us was foot washing. And so that is something unique that we do under the bridge. And there's just something that changes you and changes the person that's sitting, having their feet washed in that relationship. And I think when we look at Jesus' example in the Bible of Him washing feet, that speaks volumes to what's going on in that relationship. And so the first night we had about 30 people under the bridge. We had a lot of onlookers, and I can remember people being like, what are you crazy people doing out here? Do you know what neighborhood you're in? And anyway, and so they would just kind of watch. And so back then, foot washing was people didn't know what to do with it. They're like, what do you mean you're washing feet? And so we would literally go around and be like, anybody want their feet washed? I mean, it was like, and they're like, are you crazy? And we did, didn't we? I mean, like, I'm like, and in the winter we'd be like, the water's warm, we needed it. And they're like, you mean you're gonna wash my feet? Yes, I'm gonna wash your feet. And so I had this guy, and he came over, and he said, he was so uncomfortable. He was with all his friends, he was homeless. And he sat down, and he was telling me, this bridge has so much pain, and I've lost a friend under this bridge, and I can't believe y'all are out here. And he was relocated after Katrina. He was in Katrina. And so he's talking and stuff, and he's super uncomfortable. And I'm thinking, he's making me uncomfortable. I'm like feeding off of his, oh my gosh, I'm totally not, I'm too little. I don't know what I'm doing. How did I even get up here? I mean, really, because I'm like, what am I doing? And he's talking, and at the end of our conversation, I reached up, I'm sitting at his feet, and I pat him on the leg, and I made eye contact, and I said, thank you for allowing me to share tonight with you. And he looked away, and he said, you are making me uncomfortable. I do not like eye contact. I am super uncomfortable. And I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. And I told him, I said, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. Just thank you. And I'm like, and all week, like, I agonized over that because I felt like I had ruined that experience for him, and that I didn't know what I was doing, and I thought I had this calling from God, but maybe I didn't have this calling from God, and like, it was just really agonizing. And so the next week I was in bridge, and I'm in charge of foot washing again. Our numbers had tripled. We had 90 people on the bridge. And I'm over doing foot washing, and I see him, and he comes from the corner, and he walks directly to me, and he said, sit down, now it's your turn. And he washed my feet. And I just thought, it's not about me being little, it's about me allowing God to work. Because that changed him, and it changed me. And I just will never forget that. I'm sorry. Very much.
Right there. And then like Brother Phoenix.
We never know how he's going to use us to affect somebody else, or how somebody else is going to come in that we totally don't imagine and affect us. And that, for me, is Nightlight, that all of us matter, and that we're all important, and that we all have value, and that even when we feel like we can't make a difference, we can. And it doesn't have to be this big thing under a bridge. I don't even know where I'm at here. It doesn't have to be this big thing under a bridge, because that's not why the bridge is important. That's not why Nightlight's important. It's important because you can take time individually to know people and embrace people. Thank you so much. I just need one, hopefully. Thank you. And you can see people for who they are and love them where they are. And so we've been out there almost 2 years, and then here we come in May, and we're reaching out with the city. We approached them trying to break down some of these barriers between the people we serve, whether they're homeless or poor or whatever, and the people in our city. We saw some really big walls there. And so with that, they had asked us to reach out and go ahead and get a city permit. And so we trustingly did. And we have been faced with 4 months of just immense pressure not from our city council, but just from the people that are in charge of those city permits. And just emails behind our back, emails involving other agencies, complaints that a barricade foot was 6 inches, literally 6 inches out into a bike path. I mean, like, it has been very stressful and very overwhelming. And we got to this point because they told us, we will not pass you for this month or any other month And we got to this point where we had to decide who we were and what we were about. And we talked about it, and we stepped back for a second and waited for timing, because we just didn't feel peace with exposing everything when it was right in the middle of it. We knew we had to be with God's timing with it. And so we waited that 4 months almost, and we put it out there, and I don't even know what just happened, because all this just happened this last week. We asked our supporters to step up, and we just had to decide whether we were going to be people that come into people's lives and say, you're important and you matter, but we're getting pressure, so we're gonna leave. Or we're gonna be people that say, you're important, you matter, and we're gonna walk this journey with you, and we may be ridiculed for it, and we may be told we have to stop, but we're not leaving your side. And so we did, and it went before the city council, and God intervened through people and situations, and they passed us this week, and we will be celebrating our 2-year anniversary under that bridge.
Woo!
We did not expect that outcome, and I mean, we give all glory to him and the people that he worked through, that made phone calls and put messages out there and hearts that he softened. And this week, his timing is amazing. You know, sometimes you see it afterwards, and sometimes you see it right in the minute. And I had a phone call from a girl this week, and she said, I want to volunteer. And so I was telling her how to volunteer, and I always try to find out how people heard about us, or, what pulled them to come volunteer in that way. And she said to me, I used to live in that neighborhood, and if I had people like you, people that go the distance that you go to show you care, my life would have been had a lot less hiccups. And I just thought, for her to see, the distance, that's what, we didn't just say, we're here with you, and now we're gonna go. We said, we're here with you, and this stinks, and we're feeling the pressure, and we're losing sleep, and we're probably making people really angry, but we're still here with you, because you matter, and you're important. And so, all of that is not really about me, and it's not about Anissa, it's not about Jason. It's about what he's done, because we opened ourselves up to truly letting him work. And I think once we laid our plans down and said, okay, here we are, we don't know what we're doing. Anissa's a nurse, or Anissa's a teacher, I'm a nurse, he's an engineer. This is not something we've been trained in, but we know how to love people because you've shown us, because you love us that way. Once we laid that down and just said, go, and we're willing to walk through those doors, we have seen amazing stuff, way more complex than what we had ever imagined in the way that it would affect people, and we just kind of sit back and watch and are amazed. And so I think when we allow ourselves to step out of our comfort zones and let God work, he moves us out of that feeling of being so small and so insignificant, and uses us in bold and important ways, and that he shows us that there's no line in the sand, that we all matter, that we're all important, and that we can all make a difference, even if it's just as simple as calling a friend that you know is really down and just telling them that they matter in your life. I mean, it's so simple, just investing in each other and loving each other. And then I just wanted to read this one email that we got. I didn't even know this email came in, or this message came in. Somebody else said, I'm sure you've seen this, but this is amazing, and I just was blown away. And this was this week, and it comes from a girl who was a homeless vet under the bridge with us for about 6 months. And she's just now, we hadn't seen her in a while, and then all of a sudden she showed back up and wanted to volunteer. And so this is from her. And this is after she found out our permit passed. She said, "Thank you, Jesus, for continuing under the bridge. For those like myself who are homeless, it will always be under the bridge. For 6 months straight, once a week, I knew I could get a fresh meal, change of clothes, shoes, hygiene, and even dental floss, which was for me was a luxury. fresh popcorn and hot chocolate, and even books that we could keep and read. To this day, my go-to Bible and all of my daily devotionals and references that I use daily come from you guys. Since I slept outside, I relied on blankets I got from you, and I kept one. I've had my own house for now for over a year, and I shared it with my husband, and now I'm getting to say thank you by volunteering. You guys have truly helped change my life. That email says it all, because it's not me. I didn't do this. God has worked through people. We didn't do this. We wouldn't have the bridge if people didn't allow God to work through them. And like I said, it's not about this big, huge production under there. It's about the individual relationships that let people know that they're important, that they matter, and that it doesn't matter what their story is, that God loves them the same because they are all children